It's for my peoples one time.
What up, what up, what up? Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Because you like. This is Across the Intersection podcast. We got 2/3 of the Squizzard in here this week. It's AJ. Yeah, I'm all about my millennial lingo here. It's
Okay.
AJ. Yeah, you know. It's AJ. I'm in here with the homie A Sweezy. And as always,
what's up?
and as always, you can ingest this wonderful podcast on Apple Podcasts, on iTunes, Spotify, Google
Let 'em
Play,
know.
Google Podcasts, Stitcher.
Let 'em know.
Say what?
I said, let them know.
Oh, yeah, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and SoundCloud. You can hit us up on the interwebs. You can hit us up at divemedia.co as always. And we're on social media at Across This. That's Twitter. And Across the Intersection on the Book of Faces, the Face Beezy. So Eve is out supporting the good brother. Y'all go holler at my man Jason Wilson of the Union in Detroit. She's up in Detroit supporting him. He had his book launch this weekend. Cry
Wonderful.
Like a Man. We definitely going to try to get Jason on the podcast in the coming weeks. You know, dude he's doing big things, man. It's super exciting when somebody that you know personally is really making moves like that. So he's been all over. So if you just go look up Jason Wilson, he runs a mentoring program in Detroit called the Cave of Adullam, and it's connected to the Union, and they do a lot of great things for young black males in the Detroit metropolitan area. I would encourage you to go support what he's doing with your prayers. If you want to throw some ducats in there, you know, he's like us. You can sponsor him anytime. But shout out to Jason Wilson and the Union fam up in Detroit. They're doing great things. So Eva's out there supporting them. So y'all can hit her up on the tweeters if you want to holler at her. But we're still in here doing what we do. So we're just going to keep it light because, you know, Eve will be doing all the talking. So we're going to keep it light. We're going to keep it light this week. You look beautiful, man. You look beautiful.
Who you talking to?
I'm talking to you, man. You in that joint. I was like, you look beautiful, man. You know, you in that joint. Yeah, bruh.
Is this the right podcast? No, that my bad. No, you mentioned Cry Like a Man. I was like, hold up. I had to look this up. Like,
oh yeah, that's the name of his book. Yeah, that's the name of his book, Cry Like a Man.
Yeah, I had to look it up to confirm. You know, I don't
you thought he was giving out fake news on this joint? You like, what's up with this brother? Fake news, man. Yeah, no, it's actually called because it's the book. I mean, I have it in my Kindle to order because it's on pre-order. I can't remember exactly when it drops. I know it's this month, before the end of January.
Well, I got it right here. I looked it up. It's January 21st, 2019. So it must have just
it just dropped. Okay, so that's why he had the release party this weekend. But
Cry Like a Man. Where is it? It was Fighting for Freedom from Emotional Incarceration.
Yeah. It's about showing young men how to properly manage their emotions. So I'm definitely want to get that joint. So y'all go out there and support Jason Wilson and the Union. They doing big things out in Detroit. So anyway, we're also doing big things here in the DMVZ. But we are going to keep it short this week. We just messing around, but we are going to keep it short. Because we definitely want to get back into, you know, next episode, we're going to continue our theme of is Western Christianity biblical. We're going to circle back, but I'd rather have the whole posse together when we're talking about that. But we are going to get into some other things this week. There is by the way, shout out to all of the government employees able to go back to work. The president did sign a bill, even though it's 3 weeks, which is crazy that they would even sign something like that. Might as well put it in pencil. But they did sign a bill. So I know we had talked about the shutdown a little over a week ago, but he did sign a bill. So the government will open back up Monday morning. Yeah, I guess for that, whatever that means, for 3 weeks.
Well, yeah, you know, you gotta, people have to take things as they come. everything is being held together with with electrical tape and glue. So
right,
you know
rubber
you
bands and
can't
string
people
tying it all together.
exactly. I mean, you can't sit and complain that you want to go back or you want something and then you get it and then you mad because you know it's not exactly to the T what it is that you've been asking for this whole time. So it's 3 weeks. Things will like gotta let it go through. Things will change once you get to that that time. Something else will happen. So you know,
Yeah,
just kind of is what it is.
man, we might be back here in 3 weeks, but I'm really just glad that the people that's suffering. I mean, because I actually have some clients, for in my line of work. I mean, if you're in this area, ladies and gentlemen, if you're in the DC area, at some point you may interact with the federal government and government employees, and so some of my clients are federal employees, and I was talking with a couple of them last Thursday, and like a couple of them was like, "Yo, and these are people who actually save, but they was like, "Yo, man, it's getting to the point now where I'm like, all right, do we drive in or do we, eat tomorrow?" Because he's like, we zipping through savings, paying bills and doing this, that, and the third, and no money's coming in because they actually missed 3 checks, is what he told me.
Right.
As of Friday, this past Friday, that was the 3rd pay period that they hadn't gotten paid. So he was like, "Man, this is, getting to the point now where we're gonna have to start making some hard decisions." And so, I'm just glad that Cat's able to go back to work and make some money. It is what it is, but it is only 3 weeks, so people take that with a grain of salt. But anyway, speaking of smoke and mirrors, so there was an article that dropped. It was towards the end of last year, towards the end of 2018. It was right before the holiday time, so obviously, things get buried when you start talking about the fat man with the white beard and all of the different nonsensical things that he's going to creep into your house to do. But this is something that I wanted to, like we did last week. These are articles or a couple, this one's a couple months old. But it was something I had on the radar to circle back because I definitely wanted to talk a little bit about it. So for those of you who recall, there was a young man named Andrew Johnson, akin to the former president of the United States, Andrew Johnson. But this young man, he was a wrestler in South Jersey at Buena Regional High School. And he's a wrestler. He was in a wrestling match, and it's unfortunate what had happened to this young man. So this young man has dreads, and for those of you who don't know, it's when you twist and lock your hair, and you let it kind of grow in those locked twists. Now, this young man's dreads were about ear length. They weren't super long, they weren't like all the way down his back. But, you could tell that he had committed to it. You could tell that he had, been committed to growing his hair, to locking his hair. So kudos to him for that. But what ends up happening is that this young man, while he was wrestling, there was told by a referee. The referee told him he had to hit the quote unquote covering that he had over his hair was insufficient. It was insufficient, and that he would either have to do one of two things. He would either have to cut his hair, or he would have to forfeit the match. Now the referee's name is Alan Mahoney, and we can get into Alan a little bit later. But I just want to kind of paint that picture a little bit. This is what was going on. Young man, and you can go on you can go to the Philadelphia Inquirer. There's an article in the Philly Inquirer about it. I read the Washington Post article. The South New Jersey, what's it called? The South New Jersey Courier Post. That's the publication in South Jersey. There was a reporter, and this is the point that I wanted to get to, and then I definitely wanted to hear what A had to say about it. Was, Mike Frankel was the reporter from the South Jersey Courier Post, And he posted the video on Twitter of the young man actually getting his hair cut by one of the team officials. And he said that this was the epitome of a team player. And then he goes into Andrew Johnson, decided to cut his hair rather than forfeit the match. And, if you are on Twitter, you pretty much know what happened after that. He got dragged through Twitter because he said that was being a team player. I'm not going to get to that aspect of it, but the aspect that I do want to get is I actually watched the video of him getting his hair cut. It's less than a minute long. I would encourage you to go look at the video yourself. Definitely listen to what we're saying, but you can go watch the video and do some reading for yourself. The young man is in high school, which means he's between the ages of 15 and 18, for one. And having to make a decision like that on the spot, I think those are the types of things that can cause trauma. Because anyone who's familiar, like my wife grew dreads a couple years ago, and she, that's something that you have to commit to. It's not just like, oh, I'm gonna do my hair and I'm gonna change it tomorrow. Like you spend a lot of time, a lot of money. Like she spent several years growing out her dreads. And so for this young man who, could have spent a year or so or two, I don't know how long he was growing them. They weren't that long. So let's call it under 2 years. He committed, some time to growing his hair that way, and to have to make that kind of split second decision at that age. If you recall when we talked about Kells a couple weeks ago, when Eve brought up the point of the frontal cortex not being fully developed in the child. So this young man, adolescent, having to make that kind of decision on the spot was probably traumatic. But anyway, my point in bringing all that up was what I honed in on in the video was his teammates and the other team officials who were like giving him high fives and like, yeah, rah, 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 which, anybody who's played organized sports would say, oh, no, that's just team behavior. They just trying to hype their man up. But I would disagree with that only a little, because what I saw from the video was people who were culturally ignorant, and didn't understand what was actually going on. Like, this wasn't just, oh, he had to get a haircut. He was probably feeling like he had to cut a piece of himself off because locks are such a commitment. Just cutting it like that on the spot without being able to give it much thought probably felt like he was having to cut off a piece of himself. And so I felt bad for the young man because he was surrounded by people who were culturally ignorant to his situation. If you look at the video, the coach is white. Most of the teammates that were coming over giving him high fives were white. And so they were just culturally ignorant to what he was having to deal with, again, on the spot. It wasn't like he had time to think this through and say, all right, in 2 weeks, I'm going to cut my hair. It was like on the spot, make a split second decision. And then you got people who are culturally ignorant to your situation going rah, 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 you know what I'm saying? And I just felt bad for him, like, and this is something that I've thought about personally. When you think about moving to certain neighborhoods, do I want to put my children in a situation where they're surrounded by people who will be culturally ignorant to them and potentially having to go through things like this? So anyway, that's what I thought about it when I read the article, and when I watched the video. I felt bad because it didn't seem, from what you saw and from what you read, that he had anyone who could have at least identified with the kind of inner struggle he may have been having to go through.
These things happen. As someone who participated in high school sports, there are misunderstandings that take place and quick decisions that need to be made. And so, I understand about locks and all of that. But I would also say one of these articles that I was reading, in fact, I was reading the statement that was released by the school district, not by the school district, by the actual, what is this? Yeah, it's the school district. So, one of the statements, it says, As a Buena Regional High School wrestler stepped onto the mat, the assigned referee indicated that the wrestler's hair length and headgear were not in compliance with regulations. At that time, the compliance rules being enforced by the referee dictated that if the wrestler's hair was not in compliance with the regulations, then the match would be forfeited. And to be clear, this is a parenthetical. To be clear, I don't have the rule in front of me, but from what I'm reading, the rule is about hair length and how hair cannot be over the earlobe. So apparently his hair, presuming that that's what was going on, his hair was over his earlobe. So let's see, the student athlete made the decision to have his hair cut at that moment in order to avoid a forfeiture of the match. No school/district staff member influenced the student into making this decision. So basically, he was putting an ultimatum. That's really what it was.
Right.
Nobody had a gun to his head, but it was kind of like, do this or go home. So that's what he did. He cut his hair. He got his hair cut. And I'm sure it wasn't a nice haircut. Took the scissors, snippity snip, and he wrestled. I do think that is a frustrating experience, and heart goes out to dude. Although he was in violation of rules, and these are one of these scenarios. Now, also, I would also have liked to see his headgear, because I'm taking this article's word for it. So there's quite the possibility that the headgear was in compliance, and but the referee decided that it wasn't. That's a possibility. But when you watch sports, unfortunately, you have to go by the dictates of the referees, whether they call something or they don't call anything.
Right.
And then when referees are funny style, that's a lot of times calls are not reversed during the game. Adjustments are made by the league afterward, be it alterations in the next season or fines, or even just statements of apology. We're dealing with something right now with this no call when it came to the Saints,
right,
and the Chargers. And not the Chargers, sorry, the Rams, and how there was a missed call where a defender ran through the receiver, and there was no call of necessary roughness or foul called or anything like that. And everybody was complaining, and then a fine was made on the defender later on, but no rules changed. Just to be clear, referees make bad decisions all the time, or sometimes they make unpopular decisions. But you have to, unfortunately, abide by the decisions of the referee. It's what it is that they do. So in this situation in particular, he had, unfortunately, a controversial hairstyle.
My issue actually wasn't as much with the ref. I know, as they say, quote unquote, Black Twitter was looking to drag him or whatever. So they went all back.
As usual, that's their job.
Yeah, that's their job. So they went back into his background, and of course they found another incident where he had a run-in with a black referee back in 2016. Yes. So that's used to infer that the referee was racist. That's why he did that.
Right. Exactly.
But to your point, which is why I kind of agree with you a little bit, that he had to make that call. But I think that his decision was based more in cultural ignorance than in racism. And that's why I'm like, a lot of times cats on Twitter will jump from, go from 0 to 100 in like 2 seconds. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because listen, as two black men, we understand the journey that it would be to start growing dreads. You know what I'm saying? Right. So we would be able to have a little bit more empathy to say, look, yo, young man, go find a Scully, go find a head wrap. You know what I'm saying? Go find something to tie up your dreads, or, something. because you have to have it behind your earlobe. You see what I'm saying? But we understand what you probably had to do that. So I'm not trying to have you become a spectacle in front of all these people. You know what I'm saying? And have them hack off your hair with some, I don't even know what kind of scissors she had.
Sure, it was just regular scissors.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? But but it probably wasn't like regular hairstyle scissors. It was just like the joints off the teacher's desk or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So because I understand and I can empathize, I can say, yo, look, go find something, because I don't want you to lose this match, but I'm going to have to make this call if you don't do. You see what I'm saying? But we can kind of empathize and kind of pivot a little bit. But when you're surrounded by people, not just the referee, but the coach, the majority of the players on the team who don't even understand culturally what you had to do that, it's just more like, come on, man, be a team player. Let's go, rah, rah, rah. These are the rules. Let's get this win. It's like, yo, but after this win, I got to go home with my head looking like I was fighting with a leaf blower or something. I mean, because the joint looked crazy after she cut the hair. And like, so that's the part for me that's really unfortunate, is that he's surrounded by so much cultural ignorance that that part is just like totally, they're totally oblivious to that part. Because I mean, even the reporter was like, yo, the epitome of a team player. And people were like, team player? Y'all just made a spectacle of this kid for a wrestling match. What are we talking about here? So like the ref, whether he's racist or not or blah, 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 I think that's neither here nor there. I just think that, his decision was probably made in cultural ignorance. The team's response and the players on his team, his teammates' reactions, I think were also just rooted in a little bit of cultural ignorance.
Cultural ignorance. Okay. Well, yeah. What's interesting behind that is I don't really understand. Well, I guess I do understand, but my view is it's not really their place to have that sensitivity. It's just kind of like his place to have that sensitivity, or to just kind of like deal with that and process that. But there's a word, empathy, and empathy is important and all that other stuff. But there's a level of empathy that I think that we can we tend to have greater expectations of other people that might be unwarranted. And I think in scenarios like this scenario is that, those people don't know what it's like to have locks,
right,
or to have the skin tone that he has or whatever, have to navigate or operate in a particular environments that are not necessarily built or suited for that. His immutable characteristics, they don't really know. And because they don't really know, they don't necessarily have the capacity or ability to have those, sensitivities, or to make a space for him. I think he has to do that himself. And as crazy as that sounds, that's, it really is just a part of life, and it's a part of what makes us stronger. And hopefully he is able to just understand how to better move in certain environments and how to better prepare himself. And but let me just say this, that, as a, as a so-called Black man or brother or whatever you want to say,
hey, brother,
there's a thought that's floating around, that there's an expectation that this environment or this country, these localities, these municipalities ought be designed, or should be designed, or are supposed to be designed, or are designed for equal, for equal treatment, equal understanding.
Oh yeah.
laws being applied equally, and that's not the case. That's not the case at all. As a as someone of this particular lineage with these immutable characteristics, we have to understand that we have to operate with a special perspective or understanding or awareness of our surroundings, and know that this society is not built for us. So
Right.
people going around enforcing these laws and enforcing these rules, it is designed for them and not for you, and for you to constantly run around and try to try to say or accuse people of being racist. Yeah, okay, people racist and water's wet. Like, that's what it is. Doing that, the really what Black Twitter is trying to do is get the guy fired, embarrass him, and also try to make it so that other people are not doing these kinds of things, which is it's a weirdly, retardedly kind of noble thing to do. But in the end, and I said retardedly noble. In the end, the best thing that we can do is have that awareness and be extra vigilant on protecting ourselves and making a path for us, but not necessarily always going around and just calling people this and calling people that, because that's just a waste of energy.
You're right. I think it's self-defeating. No, with that part of what you just said, I think it's definitely retardedly noble. I understand what you're saying about that as well, because their intentions are noble, but it's like what you like the method in which you're doing it is really all right. Why not create, like, support spaces that are already created to reinforce, what I'm saying, like, your experience. Like, most of the time we don't even try to support spaces that are already created to reinforce our identity, for as little as it is. I mean, we understand, ladies and gentlemen listening, that dominant culture is dominant culture. And if you live in the United States, there is a dominant culture. And if you are not a member of that dominant culture, it will be made evidently clear to you very quickly that as A was saying, that certain things are just not built and not made for you. That's clear. And so because of that, we have to, listen, for our own sanity sometimes, is to ensure, like what you just said, that we protect ourselves by, as much as possible, being in spaces that promote positive views of our cultural identity. I think that's just very important.
And I want to get clear, that space ought to be your house. It ought to be your home.
Yes.
It ought to be your own, family, and then by extension your friends, and then by extension your community, and that's nationalism. That's nationalism, is to understand who your nation is and what nation you belong to. And by nation, I'm not necessarily referring to red, white, and blue, although that might be an attribute of your nationality. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about bloodline. I'm talking about understanding who you are and where you're from, and you have enriching ties to that. To make it in context with this, with our topics at hand, the nation in which we belong to is the nation of Yeshua and the Father and the Most High, Elohim, and the God of the Bible, and that is the nation in which that we are a part of. But they even make it more specific from that. We're a local household of believers that are interconnected, and so we try to work together, and this is our space. This podcast, this medium is us putting into action instead of being that quote unquote black Twitter and complaining about this and complaining about that, shout out to our host, AJ, for putting this together. Instead of us going around just complaining about stuff, we're building things that can provide us with the necessary platforms and environments that allow us to be our full selves. And this is stuff that we have to do and continue to do.
That's what's up. I mean, I think, just to kind of come around third base, we just giving y'all a little mini episode this week, but that word community is so important. And, I would, really encourage, ladies and gentlemen, when you're thinking about moving to a different place to live, or when you're thinking about, for those of you who have children, when you're thinking about enrolling your children in certain educational environments, when you're thinking about getting active in certain extracurricular activities, be mindful of the people that you're going to be surrounded with and the types of people that you're going to be surrounded by. Because, many times, I mean, a lot of black people don't like to hear this, but like a lot of stuff is not done because people are just these evil, barbaric racists. So much stuff is done because people are just ignorant. Because if you're a member of dominant society, you don't have to be cognizant of other ethnos because you are the dominant society. And so what ends up happening is you just have millions and millions of people in the dominant society who are just ignorant to your cultural existence. They don't really have to know about you. Like, they don't have to know that it might take you a year or two to regrow your dreads. They don't have to know that. They don't care. And it's not because they hate you. They just don't have to know that because they are the dominant culture. They don't have to be aware of your cultural experience. And so it's important. Like, I thought about that. Like, before we moved to where we are now, I thought about that. As my children were getting older, I said, you know what? Do I want them to be in these spaces? I'm not sure if I want to do that to my children. I was like, you know what? So my wife and I, we sat down. I was like, yo, you know what? Do we want to move here or do we want to move here? Yeah, I don't think I want to move over there because of X, Y, and Z. I don't want my children to be in those environments as much as I possibly can. I can't control everything, but the things that I can control, I'm gonna be very intentional about the decisions that I make. And so, with that being said, because like I said, that's why I felt bad for this kid. I mean, because when you look at the team, he's surrounded by a bunch of white kids, which they're not bad kids. I wouldn't call any of them bad kids. I don't know them. But it's clear that the majority of them are not very cognizant of what it would take for this young man to either regrow his dreads or what it took for him to grow his dreads to that point. And that right there is the unfortunate part, because there's no one there in the video that you could say, all right, these people would identify with the frustration that he's probably having to deal with. As someone who grew their hair out long several years ago, this is more than several, probably about 10 years ago. I mean, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of time. I mean, I got my hair to about shoulder length, about 10 years ago, and man, that crap was expensive. Jesus, it was so expensive.
You talking when you was rocking the Tekashi 6ix9ine rainbow dreadlock? You talking about that?
Nah. They didn't have the rainbow flavors out that back then. I was like Tekashi 6'3" and a half. But listen, I had braids, I had the cornrows, I had all that because I was working towards dreads. And and it's funny, I was just telling somebody this story about a week ago at work. I said, the reason that I ended up cutting my hair, because I was growing it for almost 2 years. And I remember the reason I cut my hair was I was going on a job interview. Literally, I had to think, okay, what are they going to think of me if I walk into this job interview with this much hair? So, but I had time to think through this. You know what I mean? Like, I had a couple weeks to really sit down and think, okay, am I going to go into this job interview with the hair, or am I going to cut this joint? And I was an adult also. I was probably about 30 at the time, maybe 29, 30. This kid, again, is a teenager, an adolescent. But I was able to think through it because I had to think through, man, I invested a lot of time and money in this hair do I want to just maybe not go for this job? So make a long story short, I ended up cutting my hair, and I went in for the job interview, got the job, and I remember telling one of the guys there, I said, yeah, man, it's crazy. Right before I came here, I had super long hair. And the dude was like, really? I was like, yeah, man, it was like almost to my shoulder. And my coworker was like, oh, man, it's a good thing you cut it because you probably would have never got this job. I was like, really? He's like, yeah. The gentleman that we were working for, he was like just a real, just one of them real type strict dudes. Yeah. He was like, yeah, man. The guy's name was Dave. He said, Dave, man, Dave would have never hired you if you would have came in here with all that hair. You'd have been gone. You'd be on the first thing smoking out of the door. And so, but those are the types of things we got to navigate through. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. But for this poor young man, I'm not sure if anybody in that whole scenario, that whole situation could even, understand any of that. So that's the unfortunate part for me.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, please just be mindful of the things that you get yourself into. And, when you see things like this happen, try to not walk in cultural ignorance. Let's do our best. I think that would avoid a lot of conflict. In the times that we're in right now where everybody's pissed off about everything, let's work to not be people who are culturally ignorant, and that door swings both ways. We do thank y'all for rocking with us. Again, we told you this is going to be a little mini. So, the next week we can get together, the whole squad will be back together, and we'll get back into our normally scheduled program. But we do thank you guys for always supporting us. And wanted to wrap up with this. We do now have a Patreon page. So if you love the things that you're listening to and you want to support, and hey, listen, if you support or not, we still going to give you what we give you. But if you like what you've been hearing over the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, and you want to support Dive Media, please go on to the Patreon page. It's patreon.com/divemedia1, the number 1. That's patreon.com/divemedia1. And support us. We would really, really appreciate your support. And if you do, we do really thank you. Moving forward, we're definitely going to try to drop some specific content for our Patreon subscribers. You might even get your boy back on the mic. I thought about doing a song to drop for on Patreon. Yeah, man. Just to, give the people something nice for supporting us on Patreon.
Oh, snap. Okay, my man. Next thing you know, you're going to dropping videos of you tap dancing.
Nah, bro. I'm gonna leave that. I'm gonna leave that to other parties, man.
Soft shoeing. Okay.
Yeah, in the words of your boy, in the words of your boy Tariq, I won't be tap dancing or buck dancing for nobody. But anyway, but we definitely gonna try to put out some exclusive content for those who will support us on Patreon. So your labor will not be in vain. So again, if you want to support us, please hit up the Patreon page, Dive Media 1.
Patreezy. Yeah. Right now it looks like we're at 0 patrons and $0 per month. So you listening. Everybody under the sound of my voice.
You could be the first subscriber.
Oh man!
Well, I just set it up, so and nobody knows about it, so
Oh man! So we about to turn Creflo now, huh?
I'm not trying to get no jet, bro, but
All right. Anyway.
All right, but we do thank you all for rocking with us.
If it's nothing at all, it's all good. You can pray for us.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, even if you can't, listen, we're going to give you what we give you, whether you can support or not. So don't think that, this means we trying to turn into no 501c3, because that is not the case. But we definitely would like to be able to do more stuff. So those of you who really appreciate what you've been hearing, if you want to support us, listen, the choice is yours. We will be here rocking whether you do or not. So we do just want to put that disclaimer out there. So anyway, thank you all for listening to us this week. For the homie A Sweezy, this is AJ, and we give a shout out to Eva. Peace.
Later.
Let's get started, I won't cheat you. Let me set apart who is my people. The ones who set in their heart to be believers. Press on to the mark to follow Jesus. When it gets hard, they be seeking the leaders.